Hello and welcome back. If you have the Warhammer 3rd edition hardcover book from about 1988, first of all, you got a real gem. You may have noticed in the back there's this scenario, which is an introductory scenario. And it's really a case study in good scenario setup. This page is hilarious. It's classic, old Hammer fluff. And it tells you how to set up the terrain, all the armies you're going to need, the special rules for this. There are printouts for the players with all the stats. Everything's pre-done. The characters are named for you. And there's even these little cutouts that you can you cut out with scissors and just use pieces of paper mounted to cardboard. So this is my setup approximation of the map. I'm using a 5x9 ping pong table. The elves are in column on the road, and they're being ambushed. If you read the fluff, that's exactly how they got here. So there they are in their little column, headed down to that orc village in the far distance. The rules said you had to put 2 units and an archer on one side, 1 unit and an archer on the other side. The mage is setting on the bridge in the middle, and that's how they start off. The orcs I dropped by using a scatter dice. First drop was Mandrake and his molesters. They got stuck in a woods, and yeah, that's not too good. They're going to take a long time getting out of there. It's just it's going to take them a while because they don't get a reserve move. The next drop for the orcs was down here, another good solid block. They're kind of defending the village and keeping them from moving forward. Over there are the orc archers, and that kind of fit into the story that was told of the general getting shot by arrows, and that was a pretty decent drop. Over here, this little bowling ball of 30 goblins. It's really important because goblins fear elves that they don't outnumber by at least 2 to 1, and there's 30 of them in that block, so they do not have fear. So the 3 main combat units for the orcs are set up to attack the bridge from 3 different directions. So even though it was a random drop, other than the one guy stuck in the woods, it wasn't a bad random drop. There's a couple of units of goblin archers, small one at the top, large one at the bottom. The one is going to try to gain that hedgerow and shoot from behind it, and the other one is positioned close enough to Mandrake to benefit from his leadership. And then there's a couple of goblin wolf riders that dropped over here, and everything was kept about 18 inches away. Nothing is within charge distance at deployment. This meant that a couple units were kind of close to the edge. So after all the random drops, there is missile fire, supporting missile fire from various directions. Even though the goblins have very short range, there is a lot of firepower out there. If they get lucky, and they can do some damage. So the elves are set up. This is the deployment, and they have a good opportunity. These 3 units are all under the size limit, so they will cause fear checks. So if they can hit one of them, they'll probably rout them. Their leadership is only 5. Bust one, panic the others. Any one of them is weak, so they're going to try to hit them first, hit them hard with their fast-moving troops. Once they've eliminated one or more of them and gotten them out of their way, they'll swoop around, clean out the goblins from behind the hedgerow, wipe them out. This unit of archers is going to come down and provide supporting fire across the river to weaken that big bowling ball block down to the point where it has to start taking fear tests. And they should be able to win the battle pretty easily at that point if they can do that. Fear tests on a 5 is hard to do. Meanwhile, the lancers are going to retrace their steps back across the bridge and meet the head-on with the leader. That's the plan. Let's see how it goes. First off, they had to pass 4 animosity tests, which they did pretty swimmingly. They're going to move ahead, but there's still a pretty good gap between the forces there, and the little short bows are only 16 inches. The wolf riders are going to warily approach a little bit, and the guys in the woods are just going to be slowed down massively. This is actually working out for the elves because these guys are now even closer together. You hit the guy in the middle, and you can panic both guys on both sides. Pretty good option there. Over here, these guys are just moving up a little bit. That's just the whole plan is just close in with everybody you possibly can get. During the shooting phase, they fired a lot of arrows but didn't do anything at all. So on to the reserve phase, and everybody gets another move. These guys are going to move up and secure the hedgerow and expand. Everyone else is going to close in as well. The wolf riders have to stop at 4 inches, but they're getting close enough to hinder the cavalry movement during charges, which is a pretty good option there. These guys move up. They get within 8, and we randomly checked to see who had the fanatics, and they just happened to have one tucked away. They launched it, rolled an 8, made an impact with the cavalry unit, and a couple dice rolls later, 4 models are dead. Finishing up the orc reserve move, and then it is on to elf turn 1. So, first thing they're going to do is declare a charge. Now in 3rd edition, you can do a maneuver as part of your charge. They're going to do an about face. Goblins fail their fear test, and off they go. Which was pretty good. Got rid of 1 unit. The elves are going to try to roll for a second maneuver as part of their charge. They're not within 4 inches of the enemy, and they're going to try to expand out instead of charging just too wide. They're going to do an expansion move. They fail this leadership test, and they wind up being unformed, and they kind of stagger forward. I think that probably should have moved them the full distance, but I thought since they failed their second maneuver attempt, you have to stop your movement if you do that, but not during a charge. It's a little confusing. So this unit here is stuck with a dilemma. There's a fanatic right there, right beside the road, so they can't go back and attack like they wanted to. They're going to have to go around them. They do a left face, move forward. In the reserve phase, they'll do a left face and square up and try to sweep those goblin archers out of the way. This is just luck. You just got to hope that that fanatic doesn't go in your direction. But its presence kind of thwarted their entire plan. Sensational Sola is going to bring the archers down here, bringing out the other fanatic. Across the bridge, these archers don't want to get involved in an extended shootout with the open source scabby boys over there in the woods. They're going to lose. I've played High Elves for a long time. They generally lose every archery duel. This arrow indicates the position of the half-orc scout Gratnik, who's running for the shelter of the forest after leading the elves to their ambush. So once the archers move down, the wizard's going to move down to there. In about face and the first cavalry lancers are heading back across the bridge. Over here, this wizard in the magic phase is going to cast Wind Blast over there using 2 of his available 10 magic points. And he's going to be able to maintain that at 1 point per turn. So he can pretty much negate that unit and take them out of the fight. In the shooting phase, Sensational Sola is not going to shoot the fanatic right in front of him. Instead, they're going to shoot at that unit of 30. They need to get them down to 19 so that they have to pass a fear test before they can charge. So they got to really concentrate on them. And the fanatic adds a defensive bumper to them, because if the goblins want to attack, they have to charge past the fanatic. So since they moved, there's only 5 guys shooting. They only managed to kill a single goblin, but 1 bite at a time. If you remember those fleeing wolf riders, which you can see at the very top left of your screen, they crept up behind the cavalry very closely, and that kept them far enough away from the table edge that they didn't immediately flee off the table, which turned out to be pretty decisive. Now, these elves are unformed, and they've got to figure out a way of keeping them running while dealing with the one on the side. There's still 6 of them, so a unit of 10 is fearful. In the reserve phase, they pivot around, getting the edge of the unit as close as possible. They have to stop at 4 inches. But if they're closer to the routing unit than a friendly unit, they cannot even attempt to rally. And even if that is the case, they don't have a very good chance. It's a calculated risk. You got to take some gambles. In the rest of the reserve phase, the first lancers come across the bridge, and the dashing Labriella with the elite archers executes multiple maneuvers, passing a test every time, and exactly lines up to pelt the spearmen across the stream. So Nobla Jenkins started with 30. He's got 29 left. If he gets below 20, he's not going to be able to charge. Plus, he's got a fanatic in front of him, and he's got 20 elves pelting him with arrows at short range. Which brings us to Cavalry Lieutenant Philander. He had very carefully avoided that fanatic. Turning right, he's going to march forward. All he's going to do is turn left and hit those goblins and roll them up. So, left turn, start your move, simple maneuver, bam. We're going to do a test to try to expand out, and he fails. So the guys just kind of wind up in a jumble behind him. So he's too wide, he's 5 deep, so he's back kind of into a semi-column. But he will be, kind of all right, as long as that fanatic doesn't roll about a 1. So here we go, only 1 animosity check. Neo's Nasty's pass. We got 2 fanatics to roll for. Let's start up here, see where he goes. We're going to use a direction dice, and the arrow points directly at Philander's regiment. Roll for distance, and he clears the entire regiment. 6 hits, everyone wounds, no armor saves, 6 cavalry are dead. Wow, back here, this fanatic is going to come back towards the bad luck little guy here, Jenkins, but it doesn't clip his unit. It only goes 3 inches, so it still serves to block him and prevent him from charging. He's kind of stuck there, and he's going to just get pelted because there's no way he wants to charge through his own fanatic. So suddenly Gruesome Jabbo's bows are not quite as afraid of those elves as they used to be, since there's a lot less of them. It's kind of difficult to wheel a unit that's this long. You sometimes have to fudge it a little bit. They're just trying to wheel some guys around, bring more guys in arc. So I kind of just did that, which kind of works. Sometimes you got to fudge things. So Mandrake's molesters begin to work their way out of the forest. It's been taking them forever, but really with that fanatic off there and looking at the damage he did to that cavalry unit, you may want to rethink that. Ernie Rome urges his roamers to charge, and they are having none of it, which causes him his movement phase and his reserve phase. Pep's killers continue to fight against the wind to try to move forward. They can barely move, but Gratnak the scout has left the forest. He's racing towards the wizard, and when he gets there, he's going to kill him or chase him away. Some of Gruesome Jabbo's boys are within arc, and they manage to shoot at and kill one of the cavalry. This causes a test which they pass. And Neo's nasties are nestled in behind this hedgerow, and they're starting to put arrows into Soul of Brighthelm's elven archers. Elves cannot stand up to exchanges like this, being in the open, and they're just going to be decimated by the volume of goblin bowfire. And the scabby shooters hiding in the forest, who started the battle by shooting the general, managed to take a couple long-range shots, hit, and take out 2 more cavalrymen. In the reserve phase, Jabbo brings his bowmen online for more shooting. So let's go back and remember Drilla's Killers, the goblin wolf riders who are routing and close to the edge of the table. Now this is why it was kind of critical it failed Romer's fear test, because you cannot rally if the enemy is the closest unit. So this required some very, very tedious measuring, because both units were really, really close. If the wolf riders had not failed that fear test to attempt a charge, they would have been able to slip over in the reserve move and get a little bit closer. But as it turns out, they were very fractionally closer. And also, as it turns out, it didn't matter, because Drilla's Killers failed their rally test and continued to proceed off the table. So this was kind of the intention of the elves from the very beginning. Their plan was to break and chase down these goblin low morale units and get rid of them. So they did manage to get rid of one, but half their army is already dead. At this point, they're going to have to take some really, really big gambles. Typically, when you start to lose, you got to start betting your whole house. In an act of desperation, Philander orders a charge on Gobbo's bows. They calmly stand and fire. If the distance had been less than 8 inches, they would not have been able to stand and fire. The objective here was to just keep one elf alive and lock him in combat. That'll prevent him from shooting at the lancers that are coming up across the bridge in support. But unfortunately, they did not survive. All 3 of them were killed. Jabbo is kicking ass. So this was a real Hail Mary pass, and they blew it, so they're done. So this means that the final Lancer Cavalry unit is going to have to line up, take a shot, and then charge in to try to finish the game out and hopefully avoid that fanatic and don't suffer the same fate that's happened to the 2nd Regiment. You take longer and longer odds as you start to lose, but they're surrounded and they're kind of up against it. So we're going to move on to the shooting phase. Here's an interesting, these are elf archers. They got 6 of them. If they can just do 3 casualties, they'll cause a panic test on the wolf riders up the hill. They don't want to charge up the hill. It's going to be too rough on them. So, they did what they could, but at the end of the day, they botched the die rolls and they killed a grand total of, 1 guy. No test. So, they're just not cutting it. So let's pan over to Nobla Jenkins and see how he's making out. He's getting shot up pretty good. The elves in front there, I believe, are Sola, and they're fighting it out with Neo's nasties, and they did some damage to him. But now the elites on the other side, we're talking, they hit on 2s. So, and then there's a leader in there who's going to hit. They not only are going to knock these guys down to the point where they have to take a fear test in order to charge, they might knock them down to the point where they got to take a panic test and they run off the table. So, Yeah, they're going to be able to bring some stuff to them. A lot of dice thrown, and they're going to kill a lot of guys. So here they go. They're just getting that crap shot out of them. They're stuck behind that fanatic, and they took a lot of losses. So they're going to have to take a break test. They're going to probably rout and run away, but no. Ice cold Nobla Jenkins. So the reserve phase was just bringing the cavalry unit up so that they were too close. Now, if Jabba wants to fire, he has to pass a fear test. He's also going to have to pass a fear test when he gets charged to not flee. Same over here. Ernie's roamers are going to have to test to charge, test to fire, and test to stand. So here we go, a little mopping up operation for the orcs. The fanatics are going to be checked first, and oddly enough, this one's going to not hit anyone, this one's going to not hit anyone. Both are rolled doubles, and both are dead, just like that. So, movement is pretty limited. The treacherous half-orc scout continues his pursuit of the elf wizard named Atlanta. He's going to try to chase him off sooner or later. Nobla Jenkins creeps forward, making sure to leave a lane for Neo's nasties to open fire. And open fire they did, emptying their arrows into Sola. Sensational or not, her regiment was decimated, wiped out down to just 2 survivors. They failed their break test, and because there was only 2 left, they were never going to be able to rally, so they turned and fled. They were done for. Ernie's roamers were still a little nervous and decided to set this one out. However, Gruesome Jabba was losing all respect and fear for elves. In fact, he was getting a little overconfident, and it was going to get him in trouble.
Come on! Come on, bastard! Come on, you too! Oh, you want some of this?
So that was indeed unfortunate for Corma Lightmantle and his cavalry, because they got shot right in the face, point blank range, by these goblins. It's going to reduce their numbers to the point where there will not be a fear test when they charge. And I really think that even though this game is just kind of wrapping up in 2.5 turns, it kind of really illustrated the differences between the High Elves and the Orcs, 2 armies that I've had a lot of experience with. The High Elves, if they have a couple of bad breaks, they're in real bad trouble. And the Goblins, if they have a couple of lucky things, they're in good shape. And they just barely avoided breaking and routing, so they're in trouble. Now, oddly enough, the rules suggest that you always make sure to end with an elf turn since the orcs went first. So here goes. So this attack actually has good chances. This is the only unit that's actually riding war horses, which gives you 5 more attacks. Charging with lances, you got Cora Lightmantle. He's a hero with 3 attacks himself. They totally whiffed the die rolls. They killed 2 guys with the riders, and that includes the captain himself. They rolled nothing but 1s on the 2 wound roll. And the horses actually managed to kick another guy too. But overall, it was just a really, really terrible, just a whiff. So Gruesome Jabba, I guess, his confidence is still going to be growing. He's going to be... he needs a promotion from level 5 or 10 or whatever he is. And, you know, that insult to injury, the goblins killed one of them in return. So it was pretty brutal. This charge is ill-advised for a number of reasons, but Ernie's roamers have failed repeatedly fear checks. This time they stick it, so they're gonna stand and fight it out. And this cavalry just is armed with hand weapons. They don't have war horses. They don't have a leader. They don't have a standard, and they're going uphill. The goblins aren't the problem. The wolves are. The wolves are going to just tear them to pieces. So that kind of is how it went. I think they killed 1 goblin, and then in return they lost 2 of their own. And then that was pretty much it. That's how things ended. And the elves are generally wiped out after 3 turns. So I'm going to give you some final thoughts on this particular scenario. So here's how things break down with the forces in this particular scenario. After just one solo playthrough, because I just wanted to get the feel of how this played, I don't want to make a judgment if it's balanced or unbalanced. I think overall the orcs made a lot of key die rolls, and the elves just were terrible luck-wise. If you run the armies through Army Builder, this is what the points work out to be. Tactically, the elves are at an extreme disadvantage, being completely surrounded in open ground. So this is the scenario in the back of the book. You know, maybe give it a try sometime. I just wanted to run through it because I never had done that before. I might run this for some friends or at a convention or something someday. So it's good to run through things solo and just see how they play out. All right, thanks for watching and enjoy Warhammer 3rd Edition.